Alright, well, apparently I finally partially busted this thing. Finally got a crack in the screen after all these many times of dropping it. So in that sense, I do have to give Samsung its propers. Even though their way that you can touch the side of the screen and make it do things makes me totally insane, because it suddenly starts doing things I wasn't expecting it to do. But maybe I should have read the directions about it. Directions and shit. Alright, so what I was very shocked by over the, and not, it was really more of the kind of thing of that typical disappointment feeling. The typical sense of disappointment. To hear, like, Hoodservative put on these various kind of pro-black podcasts about, and then they're talking about Rittenhouse, of course. And a lot of these people are really buying into, like, that there's a lot of support for this kind of movement and all of this crap, that there's some immense amount of support for it. They're getting this from... It's wild that it's like they really are believing the revolution is televised. The irony is the multiple levels of irony, that, like, the very idea of somebody like a character like Shaft or Hawk being these kind of black private detectives saving the hood, and now generations later with more wealth, with so much wealth that, the wealth is dripping off of people. Hundreds of dollars shoes. It's multiple $100 athletic wear made by Muslim slaves, most likely. Then living in parts of the city where the housing is heavily subsidized. A party that pretty much runs on promising people outlays from the welfare state. And they're saying how they can't understand why anybody would try to save a store in their neighborhood. And I'm like looking at them and I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand that? Don't you like your neighborhood like it is? Isn't the hood where it's good? Homeboy, I thought you knew. If you knew somebody from another neighborhood was going to come and burn down, like, the main corner store, wouldn't you post up outside of it and wait for them? And that they're talking, of any race of men that you would think, nah, this is a very important service station. We be getting our shit from here. And that they knew what they were doing. They knew they were going for the gas station because they wanted to start a gigantic fucking gas fire. That's the only reason why you would go and destroy the gas station with a riotous group. I'm sure there's other shit in the city. No, they wanted to start a epic conflagration. And so people who are like, and then somebody jumped in on this and was like, said to this person, said, you're like former military. How are you cheering on somebody who was like a child rapist and stuff? Like, this guy who got killed, like, he raped kids, dude. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, he kind of got what he absolutely deserved, and the weapon control of Rittenhouse is sort of epic. This is one of these moments where, that's another irony one, when you give a white kid a weapon and he just starts shooting, how suddenly, how is it that white people do it better? Again, my argument, if white people really wanted to take out black people, this would take a week. It might take 2, because there's some black people who really know how to get far away from other people into the hinterland. somewhere there's a brother with a boat. Like, y'all can't catch me. That's how he'd say it too, as he's going out on the sloop, John B. Anyway, I know Jim is gonna be like, "Oh, good one. That's a good old song." Yeah, but just hearing these people say these things, I'm sitting back and then these takes on the law that he was definitely, oh, he's going to prison. Oh yeah, and all these people, and it's just like, you do all understand, like, that this is very unlikely, right? You know, there's a lot of witnesses to this. There's a lot of footage of this. There's no way that whatever the case hinges on, that he's the bad guy, that Kyle's the bad guy, that, I mean, like, this is going to be, like, that's your piece. That's it. That's all you've got. You've got one thing, that's going to make him the bad guy in this. And sure enough, that's what it turned out it is. They have, like, this one thing that the whole case hinged on, and that's that he actually provoked people to chase him down. And that was it. It turns out everything else, it wasn't going to matter. It was that if he had provoked them in the first place, that's what the prosecution had to do. And now we know why. So everybody who's sitting back, one of the best parts about, as it kind of became a part of the right in a way, is how I started to find out what a lot of this was just having any experience in life. And being like, oh, well, no, I've seen this kind of thing before. It's probably going to turn out like this, or it turns out that this party's interests are really this, not this, which they say their interests are. That's a big part of what's going on with, like, BLM and such, that a lot of people who are Americans and don't know that this happened before. Like, my father brought this up, and this is one of these things, like, as, like, kind of a former liberal, that I'm like, how don't you all remember in the 70s people started doing this, blowing things up, killing people, like, being crazy as hell. Hella people started getting on drugs. Like, it was bad. Like, that's why, to a great extent, the only thing anybody knows about in popular culture about the 70s is disco. Like, that 70s show and disco and the first Star Wars, that's about it. There's almost no other thing anybody can really name from the 70s that is, like, a pop culture thing that they could say about the 70s. Like, oh yes, I remember that clearly. Everybody was all about that. Even for a long time, fashions from the 70s were, like, they weren't, like, they were the second hand. They were absolutely second hand. It's that some Tarantino movies and, like, the Tyler Durden jacket and things like that, those came back a little, and that's why you kind of started to get this resurgence of 70s stuff. And then people like Snoop Dogg imitating, like, pimp culture from blaxploitation movies and stuff, and real pimp culture. There was, like, a real deal kind of like thing to that, that look, that style and everything that I remember seeing as a boy among older men. Just certain things that it's like, I could remember certain color suits and things that I was just like, wow, he has a such and such color suit, but you don't see that color suit much anymore. It just fell out of fashion. And so, yeah, I thought I would bring this up because, like, people don't, like, there were hard old black men who they had been in, like, Korea and stuff like that, or Vietnam, or they had just been in the armed forces in interbellum. I think I'm getting that term wrong. They yeah, see, now I'm thinking about it. and a lot of these guys, the hip hop era, our style, the sagging pants, all of this was totally unacceptable to them, totally and completely, and that did produce Gen Xers that are normal middle class people. I see them on the internet. I see these people, like people I went to school with, people I in some way knew that later found me on the internet, that they had kind of a quasi-traditional upbringing, and they're fine. They're not out there rioting, and a lot of people are not accepting. No, over about a generation and a half, we have fallen down standards, and one of the things about that pro-black thing was just, one, the legal talk, and how these are people who supposedly know stuff about the law. They're even saying that, they're bragging about it, and then I'm sitting there like, okay, there's more footage than what we're seeing. There's more footage, and then when it turns out, it turns out there's not just footage. There's high definition FBI drone footage that hasn't gone out. Okay, this is something that I happened to know something about, simply because I was listening to the super right-wing podcast at the right time, that there were drones all over the place recording all of this. Since the first protests against Trump, since the first protest, all the way back during the election, like when he was still running for the candidacy, the FBI and other organizations had been recording who's in the crowd using drones. I've never been able to confirm this. There is a person who follows me who was on this super right-wing podcast, and he might be able to back up what I'm saying. But I think I asked him, I said, do you remember them mentioning this? And he was like, no, I don't remember. No. But it was many years ago, is why. They interviewed him. And that's what made me become so fascinated with his story. And now we're pretty good acquaintances. We're probably on good friendly terms. We'd probably get along as friends. He and I are weird characters, I can tell you that. That drones watching the crowds has been going on for now about 5 years, from what I could confirm myself. And this is something that, when this came up as evidence, and it just pops up as, on the internet, they had this all the time, I knew it was over. I knew the prosecution was pulling something like this. Because this is obviously some weird, very widespread operation within our government to promote kind of lawlessness and chaos. That's all it is. And what really is sad is that there's now a portion of our society that thinks that they could actually thrive in some new democracy or something like that. That it becomes number 51 has sided against you, number 49, and so we'll be using this rope to settle this problem, this social problem. They don't get that's what democracy is. Democracy is a lynch mob. The dissenters on the end of the rope. I don't want to, and it's also because so many Black Americans don't want to deal with the history of the Democratic Party, that the vast majority of their 9/10 of their history has been pulling shenanigans like this and using groups against one another. And then when they get the chance, they get totalitarian with the law. They're, if I remember correct, they're the Trail of Tears. That was their national policy. The Supreme Court said you couldn't seize Indian land. It was the Democratic Party that violated that policy. we couldn't do anything after we seized it. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are this party that does this. They defended slavery. Like, they created the welfare state. They created all these CIA, FBI, Pentagon. They created all that. Democrats, it's because they're magical. It's really, they're magical white people who could just make things appear, and they make the government cheese appear. That's kind of where, obviously, it's kind of bad. And it's sad. It's sad because that's why James Brown was a Republican, because you got to do it. You got to get up, go get it. Open the door. I'll go get it and do it myself. And for sort of with $200 shoes on, black people think that they're this door, this mighty vault door that we're always behind, with cars galore, with pop culture that has ruled pop culture. Their pop culture has ruled now for a generation, has ruled music, has gotten into almost all common language. And still, oh no, we're behind this lead vault door. We can't go up. We can't go and get it ourselves. No, we need another bunch of handouts. And if people don't like it, we'll go and get them, burn down a gas station, and no, nobody can do anything about it, or that's racism. Truly a fallen race. Truly a fallen people, and I think it's now one of these things of, oh no, this is totally clear. It's just that nobody can bring it up in polite society. But it's kind of, yeah, I think it's kind of that stage that it's like, no, we know that that's what's really popping, but nobody wants to say it. There's no real, we've never really had words to describe sort of this moment where you're suddenly like, oh, a whole bunch of you people are like permanently broken and are never going to adapt to like life, like ever. Oh. Like, I mean, the finality of that, when the black pill part of it, where you realize, like, no, this is it. There's like the junkies and a lot of these black Americans are dysfunctional to the point that, no, it's just be glad you're not them. Just be very, very thankful you're not lost in whatever that haze is, and that Aaron Clarey has called it, sanity is the wealth of the future. All right, well, I'm going to go and check on my laundry.